Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is early March. The weather is beautiful outside. It is going to be warm for about the next week, so that means it's time to get peas in the ground. I got two types of peas we're going to be planting here, so come on, let's do it. Alright, this is a how to grow peas video. I'm planting two types of peas, one called dwarf white blossom, which is a variety of snow pea, and the second a sweet pea called early freezer 680. Peas like the cold, they don't grow in the heat of summer, which is why I'm getting them planted in early spring. You can also plant peas towards the end of summer for a fall harvest. I've had peas planted and covered by a light snow at times without hindering their growth. Here I am rototilling the ground to prep it for the seeds on Old Betsy, the rototiller my family's had since before I was born. I am only tilling the ground where I'm going to plant the seeds, no need to make extra work. Besides, I'm going to put a water-permeable ground cover between the rows to block weeds. Here, I'm rolling out the ground cover and using a hammer and steel sod staples to hold it in place. I have learned over the years that the less weeding I have to do, the more enjoyable and productive gardening is. Now, I do leave the area where the seeds are uncovered, which is about a foot or so wide. There will still be a few weeds in the beginning, but after the peas get big enough, they will naturally outgrow any remaining weeds. Next is my favorite part. I'm using the walk-behind push plow to create furrows in which I'll plant the seeds. I'm creating a double row about 8 inches apart. I do this because I put a climbing fence in between them and then grow the peas up both sides of that same fence. Occasionally, you do hit a rock under the ground, so just go back and throw it off to the side. After the furrows are created, it's time to plant the pea seeds. I generally start by placing the seeds about an inch or two apart. After I have the entire row seeded, I go back and start doubling them up. I've never had a problem with peas crowding each other. In fact, at times, I've just thrown peas in the furrow without worrying if they're too close at all. After planting, it's time to cover them up. I use my rake to put about an inch or two of dirt over top. It's very important that you don't allow any clumpy ground to sit on top of the seeds. It will stop them from breaking through the soil. When this happens, I just use my rake and flip them away. I might have to come back in a few days and check it again. Since peas are a climbing vegetable, I have to put a fence up for them to attach to. Peas send out tendrils to hold themselves up. Here, I'm putting the posts in the ground to which I will attach the fence. I'm using the sledge to drive them in the ground about a foot. It's important to get your fence on the peas before they sprout, preferably right after you plant. Otherwise, there is a high probability of damaging them after they have sprouted. Attaching the fence to the post is the most cumbersome part of this work. I found it works best if I unroll the wire next to the posts and then hoist it up a little at a time. I start by attaching the end and working my way down the wire. Once standing on its own, I finish by attaching the wire with a few zip ties, one to the top and one to the bottom of each post. The fence I'm using is about 4 foot high, and I found that this is about the perfect height for my snow peas. The package they came in says they grow to about 3.5 feet tall, but I've always had mine reach about 6 or 7 feet. The last thing I'm doing is giving the freshly planted peas a nice watering. Now, you don't want to overwater, you just want to get the ground wet so that the seeds can start sucking up the moisture. The seeds will start to swell right before they're going to germinate. And of course, if it rains, you don't have to water that day. So that's pretty much it, everyone. Growing peas is pretty simple. Later on in the year, I'll give you an update to how they're growing. So give the video a like, make sure you click subscribe if you aren't already because you don't want to miss anything that's coming up next.